Good morning, Goose.
Howdy and welcome back to Goose Unlimited. Today we are going to finish the upper receiver builds for our LR308 projects.
So the first step that we're going to be doing is installing the forward assist. You're going to need your forward assist, the spring, and the roll pin. You're going to need the appropriate size punch, as well as the appropriate size roll pin starter punch. When you're installing the forward assist, you want to make sure that this flat end goes towards the inside of the receiver, which will allow this claw to push and then retract over, push forward, and then retract over the forward assist on the bolt. So to get it started, grab your starter pin, or your starter punch and your pin, and give it a few taps. Alright, it's staying up by itself. Then you can insert your forward assist. And we're going to give it a few more taps. So what we're trying to do is make sure that we can get the forward assist in without driving that pin, because that's going to go against the flat side and retain the forward assist. Now to keep this forward, I'm going to cheat and use a clamp. It's got rubber jaws. Keeps that nice and forward. Go back to the correct size starter punch. I like to use this most of the way through. I just got a little bit more to go. Doesn't matter that the clamp fell off, because that retaining pin is holding it there. Once we get it that far, we can go down to the smaller size. It's about flush there. I'm going to give it a couple more taps. So we want it just below flush. The channel for that pin on this receiver goes quite a long way. If I had to remove that, this pin is not actually long enough to do that. I'd have to use something else. So the forward assist is in. Next, we will work on the dust cover. The dust cover is going to be pretty simple. You're going to have the dust cover itself. The rod, and then the dust cover spring. With this, the important thing is that the dust cover spring goes in the correct direction. Then the barrel nut will actually retain the dust cover pin. So I grabbed one of my other upper receivers for reference, and you can see that the small leg of the spring is pointing upwards and it's towards the rear of the receiver. The longer leg of the spring is downward towards the front of the receiver. Both legs of the spring are against the receiver or the dust cover. I've got my door oriented, my spring oriented. Then we'll start the hinge. And if you want, you can give it one extra twist. That way it sits real nice and tight. Line up the rear and send it home. And, well, doesn't look like that one's going to work. So coming back to upper receiver number 3 that we were just working on, I was thinking that it wasn't going in. Actually goes in really tight. So that's a good sign. I thought it might have been defective. The next step that we're going to do with our receivers is install the barrel. For that, you're going to need the barrel and the barrel nut, as well as some anti-seize lubricant. Some people recommend bedding the barrel, and what that would entail is either A, cutting shims to fit around the extension that will cause the fit inside the receiver to be extremely tight, or B, applying green Loctite around the receiver, installing it, cleaning it up, and torquing down the barrel nut. These barrels fit really nice into the receivers already, so I'm going to skip that step. It's something that I could go back and do later on, and it's something that I'd be curious to see if it makes a difference anyway. So if the accuracy isn't what I want out of this upper receiver, then I may go back and do that later. Now to install the barrel, you're going to make sure that the nipple on the barrel extension is pointed upwards, because that's going to go into the slot on the upper receiver. You're going to take your anti-seize compound or lubricant, and you're going to apply it to the threads. Every upper receiver I've ever taken apart was extremely difficult to get the barrel nut off. There were actually a few barrel nuts that I just took a grinding tool and actually just cut off. The reason you want to apply this anti-seize onto here is in case you ever actually have to take it off, because what manufacturers end up doing, or anybody ends up doing, is you're going to torque down the barrel nut to about 30 foot-pounds, and then you're going to have to apply more pressure to it to get the holes to line up, or on a standard one you would. This one you won't have to because it's a low profile and it doesn't work the same as the old-fashioned standard barrel nuts. But you would torque it, and then they would apply additional torque, essentially over-torquing it and causing it to get stuck. So this is a low-profile barrel nut. You don't have to time the barrel nut to the gas hole in the upper receiver. Once you've got that there, grab your other two tools I didn't mention. Torque wrench, set it to 30 foot-pounds, and your AR multi-tool. So what I figured out that I could do is using these 3 prongs on the flats of the torque, or of the barrel nut, and I'll be able to torque it down that way. There we have it. We've got it torqued down to 30 foot-pounds, and you can go back and clean up any other grease and stuff you still have on it. So, fitting the gas block. The gas block sits right nice against that shoulder right there, unlike the other one. But on the A2 style fixed front sight post, there had to be a gap between that shoulder and the front sight post, because the handguard end cap would fit against this shoulder right here, and then the gas block would sit against the handguard. Some front gas blocks are designed to fit in front of that handguard cap, some are not. So it's something that you always want to check. The way we're going to check this one, so we're going to remove the set screws. We're going to set it up against the shoulder, and then we're going to look down. You guys won't be able to see this, but I can. and make sure that the gas port in the barrel lines up with the rear hole of the set screws. The reasons why we do that is right here is the gas port hole in the gas block for the gas tube. When they drill that, they use this hole to drill it, so that goes straight in line with the gas tube. So whenever you put it on upside down and you look, if the two holes line up, you know that it's going to line up to there whenever you turn it around. Now this gas block is too large to fit underneath the handguard, but it's the only one I had, and I didn't want to go buy another one. So it's going to need a little bit of modification, and at some point I'm going to end up either painting or dipping this rifle, so how pretty it looks really isn't going to matter. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to grind off these edges. There we have it. Customized gas block. See if it fits. Oh yeah. Coat of paint on it. Eventually, you won't even notice that I customized it. Now we're going to put the gas tube into the gas block. You notice the hole right here that it doesn't go all the way through. That's going to go towards the bottom of the gas block, and these holes that go all the way through are going to line up with the holes in the gas block. I'm just going to insert that until you can match up the holes. A little too far, back it out some. Once it starts to go in, just want to double check that your holes stay lined up. That's going to be extremely important. That's about even, so we're going to call that good. Now to install the gas block and gas tube onto the receiver. I started off, I've already applied Loctite to the set screws. Just going to slide that on the whole way. As I'm installing this, I'm making sure that the gas tube stays above the gas port there. And nice and straight. My set screws are a little tight, so I'm going to back them out just a little bit. Try not to lose them. Being very careful to maintain the straightness of that gas block and gas tube. And that looks pretty darn straight. So we're going to tighten these set screws down. Now these set screws are designed that as you torque them, they will actually bite into the metal. So you don't necessarily have to dimple the bottom of the barrel. And to check to make sure that everything is lined up the way it needs to be, I'm just going to install my bolt carrier group, and it went in really nice. So I've got really good lock up between the gas key and the gas tube. All right, so now we're going to install the muzzle brake. We're going to need the brake. Got a crush washer. The wrench that you're going to use. Some people will tell to put Loctite on, but because I've got this crush washer, I'm not really worried about it walking out. Instead, I'm going to put some anti-seize lube, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want to be able to take this thing off later on in case I get a can and need to put on a different muzzle device, or if I'm going to do a direct thread. I don't want this muzzle device locking up on the threads. Now for the crush washer, I've got the bevels pointed towards the receiver and the wider end pointed towards the muzzle. Then we're going to thread this on by hand. Let's see where it indexes. We've got to go approximately 45 degrees more. We've got a wrench. We're going to size it up. And that was actually pretty easy. And I'm using the angles and the flat sides of the gas block to help me know when I'm right where I want it to be. That's looking pretty close. I need to do a very tiny bit more. That looks pretty good. Now that we've got all that assembled, we can throw on the handguard. Most handguards will typically come with the Allen wrench that you need, as well as all the small little pieces for it. Slide this on. Make sure the upper receiver and the handguard lines match up real nice. Then we're going to take all the small parts and put them together. Now this particular system uses 3 bolts and 3 screws, 2 on one side, 1 from the other. And those fit right in there. And screw in from the opposite side. Do that 3 times. The third one has the middle one has a slightly different shaped piece because that's actually going to fit into the groove that was on the barrel nut. And before I start torquing everything down, just double check, make sure nothing's moved. So there's the 308 upper, completely assembled. I was able to complete the 308 upper receiver. You may have noticed during the video that it seemed I possibly had gone back and forth between the 2 upper receivers, but edited out the 6.5 Creedmoor. I did. When it came to fitting the gas block on the 6.5 Creedmoor barrel, I found out that I had the wrong size. I originally ordered the 0.936 inch gas block for the 6.5 Creedmoor barrel to find out that it actually takes the 0.875 inch gas block. Hopefully by the time of viewing this video, I will have acquired the correct size gas block and can finish the 6.5 Creedmoor upper receiver as well. As soon as I get the correct part for the 6.5 Creedmoor barrel, I will film completing it before moving on to the next portion of this project. Stay tuned. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment. If you've got something to say, I'll do my best to respond. Thank you for watching.
See you later, Goose.